my gosh. Why was it deleted? Okay, for some reason it keeps doing this thing where it cancels our Facebook streaming. I don't know why it keeps doing that. That's what it did last time, but we wasn't over the limit, so I don't understand that. And now I'm just stuck in this little window. Okay, so but it looks like we're live on YouTube, but let me see if we can get this going. Let me check and see if we're live on Facebook. We're probably not. Right. Yeah, that is weird. All right. Little technical piece, 1 second. Anyone is watching YouTube, looks like we got 0 viewers, but that's okay. It's still early. My computer is running a little slow. Just reconnecting to Facebook, and then we'll get going. All right. Waiting on StreamYard. Let's try this. Fingers crossed. All right, we're connecting with Facebook. Yippee! All right. Ready to get going? Do you like our background today, Dr. Jones? Oh, can't hear you. Are you muted?
Oh, sorry, I said it's lovely.
Glad you like it. All right. So thank you all for joining us this morning. This is Cannabis is Medicine by CEIC with Dr. Carmen Jones. She is the owner and founder of Wildflower Consultants, where she advocates on behalf of cannabis medical patients and provides holistic treatments to healing, specifically serving those who have complicated medical. Today we'll be talking about hypertension, heart disease, and stroke and the endocannabinoid system. We hope you are ready for information that could be life changing. All right, without further ado, I would like to introduce you all to Dr. Carmen Jones, our Director of Medical Voices.
Good morning, and thank you again for having me. Last week we tackled obesity, diet, and nutrition, and this week we'll be moving into a little bit more complicated areas of hypertension, heart disease, and stroke. As Oak mentioned in the introduction, I'm Dr. Carmen Jones, and I, yes, own Wildflower Medical Consultants in Las Vegas. And I hope that you can learn something today that you didn't know before. And if you are new to any of this, you're going to kind of be blown away, only because the information is so thick. So I'm going to share a screen and start the lecture, and then we'll come back and take some questions. Are you able to see my screen? Can you see my screen, Oak? I can't hear you if you're talking. Can you see my screen before I start?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay, folks. So again, this is Cannabis is Medicine. Is it for you? Just a brief overview, kind of like I did last week, and I will do it every week before we discuss the topic at hand. For people who may have not been able to tune in one or the other programs, this is just a screen showing that cannabis is used, has been used for many, many years. And it's not going anywhere anytime soon. All the way to modern day, George Washington growing hemp. Uh-oh, hold on, let's go back. I missed my share. Please forgive me on that. Okay. Cannabis is used in our medicine. Prior to the prohibition of cannabis, we used it along with several other things. I don't know if you guys can notice some of the chemicals that are listed here, but the one on the bottom right shows that we had cannabis indica, chloroform. I think one of them shows, everybody knows we used to use cocaine in our medicines. Times have changed, of course. We have better testing in medicines, but this is the point of this slide, is to show you that it was always a political sort of prohibition when it came to cannabis. Up to 1937, it was widely used. And then as they started to vilify it based on sheer politics and, frankly, racism, the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 was put into place, which caused it to be criminal. And our President Richard Nixon created the Controlled Substance Act, and then it became that was the beginning of the war on drugs, and they listed it as a non-medical, having benefit substance, just like heroin. And we'll fast forward to today. As of 1996, the states began to rebel, and now it's legal in some form in all but 2 states in America. However, we do, in fact, I saw 2 states, the District, all but 2 states, but this includes the District of Columbia and 4 of the 5 territories of the United States. However, we need the federal law to change. So, different types of cannabis: sativa, indica, and ruderalis. These are just schematic pictures of what the plant looks like itself. Here are some characteristics of them. Most people know this, especially if you've ever used the plant for any reason, but the sativa tends to have more uplifting type characteristics related to it, such as increased focus or appetite, increasing your appetite, whereas the indica tends to be a little bit what we call heavier, and addresses issues like pain, and sleep, and other chronic health disease, other chronic health conditions. As of now, ruderalis is not used medicinally or actually commercially, but I have read that they are working on trying to do that. But as of now, it's considered a plant that kind of grows wild on the side of the road. So, what's the difference between hemp and marijuana? Pretty much the content of THC. If you look at the characteristics list, hemp and marijuana are both from cannabis sativa. Difference is the amount of THC, and THC is formerly called delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol. It has either less than 0.3% or greater than 15% on the marijuana side. The reason this is important is because the THC is the chemical that causes the psychoactive or euphoric effects, the thing that we call high. This is a side effect of using that plant. Some people find it to be a very desirable side effect. But how it works in the body is through this complex system called the endocannabinoid system. And this system has been recently identified. And when I say recently, I mean only the early 90s, because this, in the grand scheme of medical research, is fairly new, and many physicians and scientists are still learning about it. And research is going to be ongoing, probably for the rest of our lifetime. But what we do know about it is that it plays a significant role in regulating our body systems, including our sleep, mood, appetite, memory, and reproduction and fertility. This bottom sentence is pretty important. It exists whether we use cannabis or not. That's the meaning of the word endocannabinoid. Endo referring to internally versus exo, outside. Endo refers to we have this system working all the time in our body. Here are some of the areas. This is a very simple schematic of how it might look where we would pinpoint areas in our body. For simplicity's sake, we are calling receptors within the endocannabinoid system CB1 and CB2. In also very simplistic terms, CB1 tends to refer to receptors susceptible to the THC family of the chemicals in the plant. And CB2 tends to respond more to the CBD family of chemicals. Those family of chemicals I'm referring to are called cannabinoids. And there are well over, this slide says 80 to 100, but as I was researching more, even just yesterday, well over 120 cannabinoids have been identified. And these, again, are molecules or chemical compounds that are found within the plant and act directly on the endocannabinoid system. And it's a very complex system of messaging to each cell, sort of helping the body work better. Different types of cannabinoids are present in the different cannabis strains. And this is important as you go to purchase something. That's why there are so many different strains, because of the different combination of cannabinoids that are found in it. In addition to these large molecules called cannabinoids, we have smaller ones called terpenes. Almost all of us have come in contact with a terpene because terpenes reflect the smell, the flavor, the fragrance that comes off of the plant. So I like to use the example of someone who may have touched an orange, peeled it, and had all those little crystals on your fingers. Those are essentially the terpenes, the thing that gives it its fragrance. When you're cooking and following along with the cooking shows, they want you to put the zest of the lemon. The zest is the terpene of the lemon into your meal. And as of now, we know around 200 different terpenes that are known. We also have found that the terpenes also have some medicinal value. And along with the cannabinoids, all of it together, working together, produces what we call the entourage effect. In other words, using either the THC, CBD in combination with the terpenes produce the effects that we typically need, whether it be psychoactive or non-psychoactive from the plant. This is just a chart reflecting the most common terpenes that are identified. So for instance, were you to go to make a purchase of some type of cannabis product in the dispensary, a lot of times the lab record on it will show that you have a certain amount of those large cannabinoids like the THC or the CBD, and also it will list these minor cannabinoids, also known as terpenes. These are the common ones. And if you can look in the middle of the chart there, it shows effects. It talks about the different known effects that each terpene produces. I happen to like the one called humulene or the appetite suppressant. But realistically, many people look for the ones that have pain relief and anti-inflammatory properties because that tends to be the reason most of us want to use it. So who's doing this? Who's using the cannabinoids? As it turns out, it's not those teenagers trying to find a way to get high since it's so readily available now. Naturally, the people who are using it most are middle-aged and older adults. They're ones who are starting to have medical problems and more concerns. And so there's a study that shows that increase in usage amongst seniors over 65 has increased by over 300%. And incidentally, teenage use has slowed down. But the fact remains that every day there are new cannabis users coming into the fold. And this is why people are seeking relief from several different medical conditions, all the way from, Alzheimer's, your appetite, whether it actually, this list lost, but some people want to have appetite suppressed as well as increased. Cancer, Crohn's disease is one of several other autoimmune conditions listed on the chart here. Uh, Epilepsy, glaucoma, multiple sclerosis, muscle spasms, seizures, etc. Kind of like this chart a lot. I think I said that last time, but it's kind of a simplistic way to consider what cannabinoids you need to focus on when working on one particular area. So, interestingly enough, today we're going to be working on that circulatory system section there on the right. And it lists that CBD reduces the risk of artery blockage, and THC and CBD can increase cerebral blood flow. And these things will be important to the topics that we're going to discuss today. Our topics today are pretty complicated because one, it's not only complicated from a medical standpoint, but it's also very important. Heart disease and heart attacks are one of the number one killers of Americans. And this schematic here represents things that can happen if you have high blood pressure. You can have a stroke, lose your vision, heart failure or heart attack, kidney disease, or kidney failure, and of course, sexual dysfunction. If your blood flow is not working well in your body, all of these things can occur. So, what is hypertension? Also known as high blood pressure. It's very common, and it's very likely that you can get it as you grow older. I saw a statistic referencing 1 in 4 Americans have high blood pressure. So blood pressure is the force of the blood passing against the walls of your arteries. And when it does this, it causes your heart to work just that much harder and causing potential damage to your arteries. And over time, this out of control can lead to those incidents I just mentioned: heart disease, stroke, and kidney disease. Who's at risk for this? Well, it depends. How old are you? Again, like I mentioned, the older you get, the more likely you are to have it. Race, typically people of color, and not just African American, but Asian American, Hispanic Americans, and other people of color tend to be at higher risk for high blood pressure. Family history, clearly, everybody kind of knows a relative that has it. Obesity, inactivity, tobacco use, sodium intake, which also simply refers to your diet, and how much alcohol you take in, and of course, what type of alcohol you take in. All right, so how does cannabis affect hypertension in our body? So I mentioned earlier that endocannabinoid system plays a large role in regulating various systems in our body. So the blood pressure system is not excluded. It is modulated through the endocannabinoid system as well. However, they are all still scrambling to work to figure out how this is working. What we do know about THC, the effect it can have on blood pressure, is from all of the current research sort of dose dependent. It also depends on how you take it. Are you smoking it? Are you eating it? Are you just rubbing it on? And then, of course, the person's underlying health condition. But what they have found is that someone taking THC, certainly within the first hour, can have an increase in their blood pressure. But what happens after that is, as the chemicals start to work in the body, there can be a sudden drop. And I came across a term I hadn't heard much, and that's called they call it the green drop. In other words, if you happen to be sitting down or lying down after you have consumed the cannabis, your blood pressure goes up. But as soon as you stand up, it may dive down low. And while, yes, the blood pressure drop, this is not desirable because people tend to fall or faint. And that is something we need to watch out for. However, after that first hour and over the next 23 hours, particularly with seniors, They have found that the low number on the blood pressure tends to stay low, which is a good and protective thing for your heart. So how does CBD affect the blood pressure? It tends to relax the blood vessels, decreasing anxiety, which ultimately lowers the blood pressure. So that's more favorable. You want to, when you associate it with how you're feeling in general, more relaxed, less anxious, your blood pressure tends to go down. So some of these things that we are facing, we have control over, some we don't. It's kind of an obvious slide, but I want to make sure that people who don't understand how it works within the body understand that clearly you can't change your age, your race, your gender, your ethnicity, but you can control things that you put into your body, whether it be different types of poorly chosen food, lack of physical activity, deprivation, and socioeconomic status are very important. People are stressed out there, and mental health, very important. And I'm just really glad that in our country, we are talking more about mental health. Okay, heart disease, also known as cardiovascular disease. Heart disease describes a range of different conditions, and this includes blood vessel disease like coronary artery disease, arrhythmias, heart problems, congenital defects, valvular problems, diseases of the heart muscle, which may spark something in people because recently we've heard the word myositis in the news, and of course, heart infection. So, any of these things that may occur can be considered heart disease or cardiovascular disease. Here are the risk factors, very similar to the risk factors in high blood pressure, except for now we've added diabetes to the mix. So, high blood pressure, diabetes, being overweight, physically inactive, high cholesterol, and smoking are all going to put you at risk for heart disease. So, what does cannabis and heart disease research show? This is actually an easy one. The marijuana itself is not independently associated with excessive cardiovascular risk factors. However, it can be associated with other unhealthy behaviors, as we just mentioned, like alcohol use and tobacco smoke. All right, let's move on. This topic here is a little bit more complicated, so I will slow down. What is stroke? Also known as CVA, cardiovascular accident. That's a medical term, so we will stick with stroke. Ah, this is a typo. This should say cerebrovascular accident. My apologies. I'll correct that. What is it? Damage to the brain from interruption of its blood supply. This can occur in a couple of different ways. A lot of times, stroke is known as hemorrhagic or what they call ischemic. And what that means is that you either have a bleeding in the brain or a blockage in the brain. Either way, it's a medical emergency. Symptoms include trouble walking, speaking, understanding, paralysis or numbness of the face. People may have noticed side of your face droop or your arm or leg just fall. It's usually treated quickly by medications, considering you get to the doctor in time. The treatments are simply focused on limiting the complications that will occur after the incident, because once the incident occurs, it's already happened. These things are important because most all of us have people in our life that are getting older with high blood pressure and or these symptoms that were mentioned earlier. And so we need to kind of be able to recognize what it looks like. And again, on this chart here, this photo I've showed you what it may look like. So we have an acronym in medicine: face, arms, speech, time. You have a very small window of time to save the brain once a stroke hits. So the acronym is called FAST: face, arm, speech, time. Call 911 immediately if you expect that someone around you has had a stroke. All right, now how does affect cannabis usage affect people who have had a stroke? This is going to get a little complicated, so I try to go slow. I did my best to make it a little more friendly for the viewer. However, talking about the brain and the nervous system, a lot of fancy words come up. So, the main advantage of cannabinoids is neuroprotection. And it's because there are so many levels of molecules and cells in the brain all working together that this works. This is how we have determined its value. So it works on multiple levels, not only in the endocannabinoid system, but because cannabis is effective in the immune system, it helps there. It can eliminate, this is excitotoxicity. In other words, when the stroke happens, the brain kind of freaks out and does all sorts of things to try to protect itself. So it kind of overreacts to the stress, causes neuroinflammation, starts trying to heal itself immediately. And that's what that word trophic means: enhances the trophic or building support of the neurons. And starts to try and heal itself. Again, those are complicated sentences. THC helps to promote this regrowth, this neurogenesis. It can restore the memory and the cognitive function as found in animal studies. However, some people don't like the side effect of being high, so that can sometimes limit its use. At least this is what the prediction is from the medical journals. So THC has also been known to slow down the death of these cells. That's that word, infarct, slows down. THC shows trends to infarct reduction, slows down the death of cells when administered within 4 hours. The same neuroprotective effect works through those receptors I showed you a few slides ago, the CB1 and the CB2 receptors, by helping to get all the chemicals working together in line to just slow it down. And how THC works on the immune system also helps to decrease the severity of that cell death that's occurring in the brain. Oral treatment of THC has also been known to inhibit clot progression. So, on the contrary, CBD is non-psychoactive, of course, and also works on anti-inflammatory, immunosuppressive, analgesic, and anxiolytic effects of the event of having had the stroke. Remember, the topic of this talk is cannabis is medicine. So let's do better. I showed this slide last week with the obesity, diet, and nutrition, and I liked it, so I thought I'd bring it back. So this is my saying: if God made it, eat it. And this is the beautiful array of bounty that God has given us. Let's put it on the plate in good proportion and start doing better. Notice none of this is processed. There's not one loaf of bread on there, not one string of pasta. However, we can get the satisfaction through other routes, although I, like you and many others, have trouble doing just that. We also need to do better with moving. After this pandemic, a lot of us have sat around a whole lot. We're working from home. We're not moving. We're not exercising. We're not out. We need to remember to get out and do just that. This is very, very important when it comes to heart health. Do not forget to hydrate. I don't know the statistic right off the top of my head. I think it's something like 80% of us are horribly dehydrated. How much water should we be drinking? Because most of us are drinking uh, soda, juices, sweeteners, coffee, alcohol. We need water. If our cells are hydrated, our bodies are working better. And don't forget, um, a lot of everything that happens to us is based on our genetics. Your endocannabinoid system is very connected to your genetics, just like whether you will have uh, uh, hypertension or heart disease. So let's make sure we understand that some of these things are out of our control, but the things that are in our control, I just listed in the term of diet, exercise, nutrition. Let's reduce the stress in our life. Please be mindful. I kind of don't care how you do it, but you should do it. You should um, find time for yourself, find time to be quiet and sit in nature and calm everything down. How do I use cannabis now that all these benefits have been shown? Um, what is it? There are so many different products. If you've ever been into the dispensaries, you'll know that there are multiple ways of using it. But sometimes people think it's only smoking cannabis that you can do. But they currently make everything. I always say from nasal sprays to suppositories. So you just have to find out which one is best for you. Obviously, if you inhale it, that is the fastest route to get it into your system, but a lot of people don't prefer to do that. You can swallow it through edibles, and that can take anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours. The intermediate approach is through sublingual. That's those tinctures that you might have heard about, where you take the dropper of the CBD oil or the hemp oil or even THC oil, put it into your tongue, and that will take only 10 to 20 minutes. I like to promote this app because this is what I have patients use to help track what they've used, and then they can find out um, how this particular product worked versus the one they took last week. And a lot of times people don't remember what it was. They just bought something that was recommended to them, but this is a way to keep track of it. So, what's the future? More than half of Americans believe marijuana use should be legalized. I think the last statistics I saw was something like 67, 68%. And cannabis is already legal in many states. We are just waiting for the federal government to catch up. And I hear there has been some recent movement over the last week on this, so let's hope we can get it done this year. So, in closing, some funny things. I saw this yesterday and thought I would add it because it seems like it happens to all of us this way. I woke up this morning determined to drink less, eat right, and exercise. But that was 4 hours ago when I was younger and full of hope. And I will never stop showing this because this also speaks to our American experience. Enjoy. Okay, so everybody remember that's another way we can take care of ourselves. So, weed is from the earth, says Smokey. God put this here for me and for you. Take advantage, man. Take advantage. And that is my time. Here is my social media. And I will stop sharing the screen and take questions if there are any.
All right, let's see if we have some questions coming in from the comments. We have 2 viewers. Hello. Any questions about cannabis as medicine? That was a great presentation today, Dr. Jones. Thank you very much for that.
That was a complicated presentation. The interaction between the cannabis and the nervous system is actually one of the items that is hot on the research trail right now. I think that the scientists are really intrigued with how complicated not only that the neurological system is, but how the fact that the cannabis can actually be neuroprotective. I like to say to people, think about it like a piece of wire or the cord you charge your phone with. You know how it kind of comes loose at the end, and you see the wires underneath the little plastic. The plastic part is what cannabis sort of helps build. So you got the wires, those nerves underneath, and the plastic part is what cannabis helps rebuild, and that's neuroprotective. Just like you wouldn't want to touch that wire on your charger. So that's one way that we can practically think about it, very simplistically, of course. But yeah, that's one way. And they're finding that not, obviously we've all seen the little miracles with the kids that are better with seizures because of cannabis. That's one of the ways. It is. Just like with people with Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. So the nervous system in cannabis is, I think, the next, well, it's currently the big wave of research going on right now, because they have a grasp on actual actual progress there.
Yeah. So what does it mean for blood clots? Like, do we know anything about that? Like blood clots and cannabis?
What's the second thing you said? Blood clots and what?
Blood clots and cannabis. You were saying that CBD helps to bring down blood pressure. Would that also help with blood clots, like preventative, or if I didn't have anything going on like that?
Somewhat. So again, every system that we're discussing is directly impacted on who we are, what we do, how we live. So people who have blood clotting disorders tend to have that from a genetic problem, as opposed to something that they've eaten, like blood pressure. But yes, they can. Again, we need to stay hydrated. We need to eat better. We need to have. When I say eat better, I mean not just for weight, but for nutrients. And these nutrients help in our full body system, the way it works. Blood clotting has been found, I believe, with CBD especially, to decrease. This is not a direct finding, but because of the fact that CBD can relax the vasculature, it can help with decreasing that blood clot issue. And that is important when it comes to preventing atherosclerosis or heart disease caused by blockage of the arteries, and in strokes, because remember, strokes can either be hemorrhagic or bleeding strokes, or ischemic, where there's been a clot that blocks it. So a lot of times it can be used in a therapeutic way, according to the most recent studies, if given within 4 hours. However, I don't know any hospital anywhere that's got some cannabis on hand to give to the patient in the emergency room within 4 hours. So
Mm.
it will remain to be seen how this can be used in the future. The way I understand the research is they are trying to find the mechanism that it works so that they can create something that can be used more specifically in a control setting like a hospital. So, in studying the endocannabinoid system and how cannabis works on it as it relates to the nervous system, they will find the pathways, the all of the very complicated chemical processes that occur, isolate that process, and then try to turn it into a medicine. So while a lot of people who are in the cannabis industry want to uh, keep it out of the hands of the scientists and big pharma, at some point it's going to happen because they're going to figure out how did the body do this and then create some way for it to be controlled again. I mean, that's the main word, controlled, and so they can provide that same.
Regulated?
Well, yeah, but that regulation, um, yes, everything in that
Everything's
world is
regulated.
regulated, right? But
Okay. But
mostly,
you're saying like
it's.
as a practice, kind of,
I'm saying as a medicine, everything's got to
as a
be in
medicine.
a form, right? Whether it be something they have you swallow, like you remember seeing someone's having a heart attack, quick, give them an aspirin, or that if they have their
Yeah.
nitroglycerin, so that it immediately does something. That's what I think they're trying to do with cannabis. Figure out what that chemical is, what the process is, so that they can have something just like that for strokes.
And you said within 4 hours they can do what? They can have CBD, and it's supposed to do what again?
They found that when CBD is given within 4 hours, it can relax those vessels, um, delaying, preventing and decreasing the effects that the stroke already had. Can't stop a stroke when it happens. It's a
Once it
medical
happens,
emergency. It's done, but you can mitigate the damage done to your brain. So I have a real life example of this. Um, Another doctor friend of mine um, did have a stroke while working, just like you and I are talking, was working in the telehealth capacity and just went down and didn't know what happened until, of course, afterwards it was all explained to her. But suffered a stroke, went to the hospital. They really weren't able to identify the source. But I got a phone call from her, being a friend, and she was very distraught. I went to see her when she got home from the hospital, took her high dose whole plant hemp CBD that I get from Cohen Medical, where I work as well, and gave her high dose CBD. Uh, Another friend of cannabis practitioner, Christina Thomas, went with me and helped her with some relaxation techniques, some energy work. And we uh, heard from her 2 days later, and she said, "What is in this stuff? My brain is working better today than it was before the stroke." So I'm like, "What?" I was hoping she felt better, but I didn't expect that.
yeah,
Example number two, I have
yeah, that's
relative, very sick relative,
that's awesome.
and she, I believe, had what's known as COVID brain, and started her on the CBD as well. And within 2 days, she doesn't want to sleep anymore. She wants to be up walking around, back to her old self almost. So, excuse me, I've seen it work directly many times. These are just two of the most recent examples. So.
Okay. You had someone in the comments ask a question. They said, "What is the next step for cannabis as medicine as far as treatment?" I wasn't sure what their question was, so I just shared your website. But maybe you can give like a general answer to that, like where do you see treatment going? I know you mentioned hospitals
So,
may start to integrate it, but what do you think is going to be like the first step towards that?
excuse me. Give me 1 second, please.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what that question might really be. So, again, I know a lot of the people in the cannabis industry want to keep it pure, want to keep it artisanal, want to keep it holistic. I really and truly hope that that never goes away. Um, However, I don't see it happening in totality because if we, the industry, are saying this works for this, that, making all these medical claims without adequate scientific research, I don't see how we can keep this to ourselves. So when you hear politicians or doctors say there's not enough research, I don't know if what they're saying, if they even know what they're saying, because there's plenty of research there. Plenty of research. It's just not directed research. Some of it is, but much of it is generalizations. Like, as I'm researching for this talk, I found a whole bunch of medical articles talking about, well, we can't come to a conclusion, but because we know cigarettes are bad, we're going to say cannabis is bad too. So don't smoke it. And that's the conclusion that they just kind of come to automatically. So the articles and the information I quoted today, some of them are as recent as this year. 20 and 21 are the only articles that I tried to pull. And a lot of those now today are saying, well, we see something, but we can't be sure of how. And it's almost like they're so reluctant to admit that it's working or that the research is coming out favorably because they've been so used to being unfavorable with it. So, to answer the question, what's the future? I believe, as I said earlier, that the medical establishment, whether it be the science, the research scientists, the researchers, the pharmacists, pharmaceutical industry, the medical establishment is going to try to put lightning in a bottle. It may never happen because maybe God didn't want lightning in the bottle. Maybe he wanted it to grow freely. But that is the nature of us in Western medicine. Try to find the chemical, put it in a capsule, and then give it to us in that form. My advocacy, though, is for more holistic practice. I would love to see us continue to work towards using natural methods to heal our body. I'm not against pharmaceuticals. I'm a physician. I've used them for 30 years. Especially, I want to make this point, people who say, oh, I'm just going to change my diet to affect your high blood pressure or so that you're not, I'm not going to take that pill. I say absolutely not. High blood pressure is they call the silent killer. There is no way you should not take that little pill. It's going to help lower your blood pressure. You can do it while you're changing your diet, while you're increasing your exercise, but do not miss the opportunity to monitor and lower your blood pressure. We don't want to lose another person to something that is treatable. So hopefully I answered the question.
That is great information. Really appreciate that answer. My mother has high blood pressure, so I'm just very tuned in. I had another question. What was it? Oh my goodness.
Well, while you think of the
You
question,
said something.
your mother, my mother, our mothers, Black people have high blood pressure. There's a number of reasons for this, but remember, I mentioned it's genetics. So it's not just us, it's most people of color. But there is one theory that
Okay.
is important for how we as Black people got it, and that has to do with the Middle Passage. We were starved and did not get enough to drink. So genetically, our cells evolved to retain water through salt retention in our body so that we would not die.
Wow.
So, in an attempt to try to survive, our bodies kicked into that survival mode, which we no longer need today, but it is still hurting us. It is now hurting us. The thing that
Wow.
helped us survive is now hurting us. So the other ethnicities who did not have that same experience, that is mostly due to diet. You know, mm, I don't know. People of different ethnic backgrounds have lots of flavorful, tasty foods, and as you may remember from last week,
Num num num.
overweight as well. But that's because maybe we like to eat our food. We just have to find we have to
Yes,
find
we
that
do.
balance. Have to find the balance. Did you
Okay.
remember your question?
Definitely. I do. I was gonna ask, how would you describe holistic medicine? Like, how would you describe that, opposed to, I guess, traditional Western
All
practices?
right. So holistic is a word that encompasses all things natural, hence the word whole, holistic. And under the umbrella of holistic, you might find things like naturopathy, herbalists, um, chiropractic, Ayurvedic, traditions that are um, steeped in history and, again, plant medicine. Western medicine typically is based on, and that holistic medicine is often based on prevention. Western medicine is often
Prevention.
based on symptomatic relief. So my head hurts, take a pill.
Mm.
I have cancer, have chemotherapy. So sorry. um, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Um, but we don't want to. We don't want to have that all the time. We need to be proactive with our own healthcare. We need to be more holistic in our approach. We need to be preventative. And if we preach
Yeah.
and practice prevention more, we will have less need for those reparative, reactive treatments in the future.
Okay. Now that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so it's a whole different way of approaching medicine. Um, that's insightful. That's insightful. All right. Well, we're getting wrapping up. Do we have any more questions for viewers? Said love their food. Love my food. Joy Jones. All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, we can start to wrap up. We do have, I believe it's 3 more Cannabis is Medicine lectures that are going to be on YouTube and Facebook, just like this. If you haven't already, please RSVP to these events. Let us know that you're coming. Join the conversation with us. Send us some questions. Let us know what you're interested in learning about as it relates to cannabis and medicine. And Dr. Jones will make sure that we cover those areas with you. Also, make sure you check out Dr. Jones' website, wildflyremedical.com, where she speaks with medical cannabis patients and advocates on their behalf. And make sure you follow us on YouTube. Well, subscribe to our YouTube if you haven't already. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook. All of our pages are CEICNV. And I just want to thank Dr. Jones for putting down these presentations and doing the research for us. Very happy to have you in our community to share this vital information with people who are struggling with medical issues or trying to thrive and be preventative, as you say. So we're very grateful to have you, Dr. Jones. And until next time, do you have any closing remarks?
Only I'm grateful to be here, happy to share this information with the community, and I hope that people do get to watch it later, because while we are still new, we are a mighty group. And I don't know if it was mentioned, but I want to reemphasize CEIC stands for Cannabis Equity and Inclusion Community. So it's really important that as we continue to embark on this new venture in America, in the world, that people understand that we are here for the people that have not been represented all the time. And that's why you're the ones getting this special health forum. So thank you again for having me.
All right. Thank you so much. Until next Saturday. All right. You have another day, Dr. Jones.
Thank you. You
I'll
as
see
well.
you. Okay, and broadcast.